What's going on, you loyal listeners? Thank you for tuning in to the L Squared Podcast. I'm your host here, Luke Larson, and joining me today is a very special guest. Old Legs has the night off tonight, but I have an old friend of mine. We've been friends for, how long has it been now? It's been like a few years, 4-ish.
Yeah, for sure. It's been 4 to 5 years easily.
Yeah. So the voice there is, we could now officially, maybe for this episode, we could change it from the L Squared Podcast to the Luke Squared Podcast, is my good friend Lucas Bryant. Thanks for coming on the show.
Well, thanks for having me. Phoning in from St. Paul, Minnesota. We're ready for a good podcast here.
There we go. The audience goes wild for St. Paul. So, like we said, we've been friends for quite a few years now, and we met through a mutual friend. You guys went to the same college, and you had a radio show back then where you talked about movies, and I went on it a couple times, and yeah, those were good times back then.
They were.
Less things to worry
USC
about.
Movie Talk. I think it's still going, actually. I think I passed it down last semester, my senior year, and then someone else that was on the show took it over.
Wow.
They did a phenomenal job with it, better than I did, and then I think it's still going, from what I understand. So
that's awesome.
yeah, it was a fun experience, no doubt. And it's always great talking about movies, you know.
You know, I was trying to think when was like the first time that we met. I think I went down to USD to visit my friend, and then you were there, and we met then. Yep. And then I think that you were in my neck of the woods to see, and I think we saw Captain America: The Winter Soldier together, if I remember right.
That is correct. Yeah. Austin and I drove up, and we were around you, and I think we ate at Five Guys as well.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a good day, no doubt.
Yeah, because that's when we talked about, like, you were like, do you watch, I think it was AMC Movie Talk at the time, and I was like, yeah, I watch it every day. Like, I've never met anyone else who also watches that in real life.
Yeah, I watched that throughout high school and college pretty religiously, no doubt.
Yeah. You know, that's kind of interesting. Like, I've kind of backed away from it in the last, like, couple years-ish, just because, like, I kind of felt myself getting a little bit group-thinky with them. Like, it was one thing, especially with The Winter Soldier, I remember, like, they all saw that movie, like, a month early, at least. And so they're, like, talking about how much they loved it and how much, like, it's going to change everything and how, you know, whatever, how great it was. So then us as fans were watching every single day for, like, literally a month of them just talking about how good it was. And we were like, oh, my God, I can't wait to see it. And then we saw it and, like, yeah, it was really good. But that initial viewing wasn't quite, I feel like, as fulfilling because I felt like it was just checking a box at that point. And I think, like, there were a couple points like that just kind of turned me away from it because, not that this is an episode about talking about movie talk, I guess, but that, like, it was important because it's interesting, like, when you start getting into something, like when you start getting into movies, you want to, like, at least for me, I wanted to learn as much as I could and see as many movies as I could and, like, hear as many thoughts as I could, and, like, because I wasn't really having my own original thoughts really at the time, so you're just kind of consuming, and you just want as much content as possible, and then after a while, it's like you notice the patterns, and you start digesting it more, and then it's kind of like you disagree with it more and more, and then you just kind of start to form your own opinions, and then I just kind of broke away from it and don't need it.
Yeah,
but
I was kind of the same way on that too, no doubt. I felt listening to them enough, and they might overhype a movie, so you go in and you're like, okay, I'm ready. And then anytime you overhype something, it's never going to be like that. And for me too is once you start disagreeing, you kind of want to be like, I want to be on the show right now to talk to them.
Right.
But you don't have that opportunity, so it's like, well, that's why I like kind of what you're doing is you're starting your own little show here and growing it, having your own opinion, and bring other people on to chat about movies, and I think that's a pretty good idea, because I think AMC Movie Talk, they filter in a few people who's always the same people over and over, you know. So
yeah.
it's good to bring in variety and have your own opinion.
Right. Yeah, no, I totally agree. Like, that's one of the reasons why, like, when I wanted to start my own, there was one man who I was going to have as my co-host, which is Old Legs, Jurdo, because, like, he's always had such interesting opinions, and he and I disagree about stuff, you know, some of the time. So it's really nice to kind of get, I was like, well, I want his point of view on there because he and I see things differently, you know, from different perspectives, and overhyping stuff is just like the worst crime ever. I hate it. And that's why it's hard, like, saying like you're a movie fan and you're into movies, then all of a sudden, like, people who aren't as into movies are always asking you, well, what do you think about this? Well, what about this? You know? And I'm always a little bit, I don't always want to give out my opinions to people, which sounds weird because I do this show where that's all I'm doing. But a lot of times I just point them back to, like, hey, I talked about that on my podcast. Just listen to that and you'll hear my thoughts. But
yeah, no, it's a good way to do it, too. Get more viewers that way and get more people interested.
Yeah. That's what I think. And it's like, because one, I don't have enough time to stand here and talk to you and tell you all my thoughts. And because I can't just give you a little bit, like, I have to say everything about it, you know.
Yep.
And then also it's like, I don't know where you're coming from and where your mindset is, because overhyping stuff is a real concern. It's like, if you don't want to give them the wrong idea, and like, it's really hard because it's like everybody's taste is different. So I kind of want to, like, whenever anybody asks me to give them a recommendation on a movie, I kind of want to, like, ask them follow-up questions like, well, what kind of movies do you like? What are you kind of into? What did you feel about this? To try and get a good idea, because if I just tell you what I liked, you know, it's... There was one time that I'm calling her out, Haley, my sister, they, like, wanted movie recommendations. And I don't really love doing that, but I thought, okay, I'll try it out. So I gave them a couple movies, and one of them was Foxcatcher. Do you remember that movie? With Steve Carell, Channing Tatum. Yeah, it was okay. Pretty dark, but, like, I recommended it I said, you know, it's not like a fulfilling movie or, like, overall necessarily, like, great movie, but the performances are really, really good. So I said you should watch it for the performances. And her and her husband did not hear any of that, and they just watched it, and they hated it. And then, like, her husband made the comment of, like, I'm never asking Luke what movie to watch again. I'm like, no, I told you. Like, it pissed me off.
Yeah, we had that same problem with my parents. We watched the film, Michael Keaton in it, Birdman, love it. And I'm a big, you know, into the behind-the-scenes stuff and how it works, and I thought it was fantastic. The story, I could see where my parents were coming from. They just thought it was the weirdest thing in the world, and they're like, yeah, we didn't like it at all. And I recommended it, but I'm like, for me, it was just amazing, because it's just like, it feels like one shot the whole time, you know? There's only one time where I was like, that's for sure cut.
Right.
And stuff like that. And, you know, having different opinions on, for every Christmas year, every time during Christmas, my family, which is my dad, my mom, and my sister, we used to watch a trilogy for about 4 or 5 years now, and that went pretty well, but now we're starting to run out of trilogies, you know?
Sure.
And so I brought up the Avengers trilogy, and my sister goes, no, I don't want to watch those. I was like, okay. And you know how hard it is to get 4 people to agree on 3 movies to watch in a day? We each picked one we liked. We watched 2 of them, and then we came in the middle, and the last one was a toss-up between... it's something I have... Ready Player One was my choice.
Okay.
And the film... I don't know the name, but do you remember the old Kurt Russell film where he plays a character where this girl, it's Overboard. Have you ever heard that?
Oh yeah, yep.
So but it was a remake of that, where it was opposite
Oh
roles.
yeah, with what's her face, Chris Pratt's ex-wife.
Yeah, it was Anna Faris.
Anna Faris.
Right?
Yeah. Yep, that's right.
And I was like, I saw the reviews, and it didn't help that I looked at how terrible the reviews were, and I'm just like, guys, and it had some funny moments, but I'm just like, they ate that up, and I'm just like, this is terrible. So
that's the worst too, when it's like when you're in the minority and you're like, no guys, trust me, this is objectively bad, and they're just having the time of their life, and you're like, I need to get out of here. It's like torture. Like anytime an Adam Sandler movie is on, and I have friends who just die for those, and they love them, and I'm just like, I can't explain to you how bad this is at every turn. You know, it's just like, that is like torture. But Birdman, it's interesting you bring that up. My friend, this was years ago when it had first come out. I think it was 2014. And I was telling my friend how much I loved it and how great it was. And he said that his sister and her husband didn't like it. And I was like, really? Why? Like, what did they say? And they said that, like, what you were talking about when it's all one shot and the tracking shots and how beautiful it is, that, like, gave them a headache. Like, they couldn't quite follow it. And I was like, okay, like, that's an okay critique. Like, I mean, if it bothered them, that is a big part of the movie. So it would stand to reason that that the movie wouldn't work for him at that point. But like you were alluding to with Birdman, you kind of like the behind the scenes and the technical aspect of the production. And now the reason you're here, other than I've been wanting you to come on the podcast since I've started it, is that you did it, man. You made your own movie, the short film, Dial, right?
Yes, that is correct. The title is Dial, and shot this last June, actually. It was a 2-day shoot, shot in Red Wing, Minnesota, so a nice little Minnesota production. And yeah, I think it turned out pretty well. I'm excited. Got some film festivals I want to apply to. South Dakota Film Festival is one of them.
Yes.
So if I get into there, I'm assuming you're going to be there, right?
I'm planning on it. Fingers crossed. I'm going to hit them up again. I mean, I call myself the official podcast of the South Dakota Film Festival, so hopefully they bring me back. But
yeah, well, if you're there, and I get the honor of being accepted there, I'll to maybe do another podcast there for sure.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
So I'm nerding out a little bit because it's been so cool to just see a short film written and directed by Lucas Bryant. Like, that's like, it's just crazy to me. I'm so happy for you, man. That's just awesome.
I appreciate it. Yeah, it was, I've been getting a lot of good feedback from people that I, kind of trust in terms of they're my friends that I know, but I'm also like, be hard on this. Like, is it any good? And they're giving me some good feedback, which is reassuring. But it's been something I've been wanting to do for quite some time. And, well, I'm 24. It's like, well, you had for a long time to do it, but it's kind of my way of kind of showcasing what I can do as a writer and director, and trying to do it earlier than later,
Right.
So I kept telling myself, it's like, well, if I don't do it, then, then it'll just become an excuse each day, and so the story just I was planning on doing one, I just didn't have the story, and then the story just came out of the blue, and I developed it in about 4 to 5 days, got the real kind of rough cut. Do you want to hear the story of how the process?
I would love to.
So I guess I'll start by kind of going into a Dial. It's a kind of a different approach to, I wanted to take a different approach to the mental health storyline, because I think whenever you kind of go on YouTube and look up mental health short films, you really see kind of the outskirts of it. And this, I always don't want to say like, oh, like certain movies kind of inspire me, or like it's supposed to feel like that, because it's, I don't want to drag any other director down or anything. But have you ever seen Pan's Labyrinth?
I did like a long time ago.
Yeah, so that, for me, that's one of my top 10 favorite movies. If you asked me to come up with my top 10 right now, I don't know if I could tell you all 10, but I always know this one's in my top 10, and it plays with the kind of the mystical and fairy tale side and real life kind of mix. So I thought that'd be an interesting approach. So yeah, the story just I was actually, I hopped in the shower and I was, just thinking about story ideas, and it just came to me like, and when something comes to me, I have to like start writing it down. I'm a big pen. I can't, if I type anything on the computer besides like a script that I've already written out and stuff, I'll forget it. So I went out, it was, I think, one of the quickest showers I've ever taken, about a minute long it was. And I ran out and I wrote down my ideas, and I think I wrote it that day. And then, it's about 14, 15 pages long, the script. And film's about 21 minutes with the credits. And, it's just, then over the next 4 or 5 days, I think I had 6 rough cuts. I kept changing some dialogue, and, it was just me. Luckily, no one else was around to hear me just talking to myself. But I'd actually rehearse the lines out, and I would, when you write something and then you say it, it is so different. So I had to make sure that was, because there's 3 characters in the film, but it's heavily dominated by just 2.
Right. Yep.
Playing off each other. And I said, well, if the dialogue starts slipping up, it needs, then we'll lose interest, because it's not like you can have another character come in with a couple lines,
right,
draw people back. It's very much dominated by 2 characters. So, so yeah, the dialogue was nailing that down. And then once I had that, I had my whole. I had Ellie Drews. She's a cinematographer in the Twin Cities. Great cinematographer. And I knew I wanted a female to, because I also edited this project, so I knew I wanted, if I have a male, me being a male, shooting, directing it, and editing it, there's always that male approach to it, and females and males obviously think very differently. And so I wanted Ellie to be my cinematographer, because one, she's just great at it, and 2, I needed the opposite sex approach to it, because and I think it kind of, that helps, since the film has a male and a female character. So
yeah. Wow. Well, so talk a little bit about, like, I just picture so clearly you like hopping out of the shower and like scrambling to find like a pen, like the first pen doesn't work, and you like toss it, and you like grab a pencil, and but just kind of talk about, so after you had this blind inspiration, and you hacked out this first draft, how did you go about like getting the wheels turning? What did you like instantly start reaching out to people? Were you looking for places to shoot? Were you trying to talk to people about being in it? Like,
that's a good story. That's a whole nother process where I had the shooting location actually down before I had the idea down. We actually shoot at my parents. It's where I grew up.
Okay.
And so I was like, I can use this free location. Let's figure out what type of story I can do. And then this one came up, and everything just started clicking with the creepiness of the film, and my parents having this kind of old creepy garage. And I thought, wow, this is what I need. So I got that. And then Ellie Drews reached out. She gave me a bunch of names for crew. We had Casey Pearson, Lexi Tyrell, Owen Seaton, Tiffany Leibel. I'm sorry, Tiffany, if I pronounce your name wrong. I'm gonna give out my whole crew a shout out because they did so well on it. Except for Bonds, Kirsty House, Nicole Cahan, and Ashley Cook. It was definitely if you look at it from a cast perspective and crew, 3 males and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 females on set, which is great. For that kind of, I know there's been and rightfully so, good movements for females in film, and I think this production shows it. But because there's a lot of things, I'll tell you right now, there's a lot of things where I wasn't prepared for in terms of like, I knew I had like what I want for shots and stuff like that. I'm kind of, my story will jump around. I promise. That's going to be a guarantee.
Okay, perfect.
And you know, I knew like, okay, everyone's going to come to me for questions, so I was ready for that.
Yeah.
Everyone had so many good ideas in terms of just small tweaks. You know, I'd say like, I'm kind of looking for this, and you know, from set design, shot perspective, they knew. They were like, boom, boom. They all worked together, wow. And it worked out great. And but yeah, so I'm a big pencil and pen type of guy on paper. So yeah, I wrote it down, got it out of the process, and so once Ellie gave me the names that she recommended, and I had some people I knew of too. I locked down the crew first. Then it was terms of getting the cast, and I thought, okay, so I rented out this, or I guess I didn't rent, I checked out this library. They gave me this room free 2 back-to-back Saturdays. I had auditions.
Wow.
Well, the first one, it wasn't as full as the second one, and that's mainly because we got 10 inches of snow. And it was in April.
Of course.
I lived in St. Paul, and the auditions were in Minneapolis, and I was, you know, I had a lot of people reach out to me and say, hey, I'd like to do next Saturday. Hey, I'd like to do next Saturday. And I had people every 15 minutes on the Saturday after. I can't remember if I ate lunch I had people from 8 to almost 8 to 4, I think, or 8 to 3.
Wow.
Straight every 15 minutes. It wasn't, you know, I didn't need them for a long, you know, only a 15-page script. I only gave them 2 pages. I didn't give them the whole thing, but I gave them good character descriptions. But that first time I was like, wow, okay, I can't bail on these people, you know? So there's maybe people are thinking, so I made the trek, didn't get my car stuck, and there were people that did make the trek, which I appreciated, no doubt. And so it was back-to-back castings, and then they're individual, and I was reading lines, recording the camera to them, and I thought, okay, so I picked my top 3 for the male-female role, which is the overall lead role, and then the lead male role. I picked top 3, and I paired them with, because I needed some interaction, you know. And then I had Cynthia Schreiner-Smith. She plays my third character. She showed up, and when she read her lines, I knew I was like, okay, I got her.
Perfect.
She did so well. And then I had the next, I think I went through and watched them, and I had a good understanding of who I really liked and who just kind of fit the role. And so then I knocked it down to 6 people overall, the 2, which, like I said, 3 on each side. Had him come in. One time we were at the library. The other 2 times, my roommate with Andy Cobb was nice enough. He just hid in his room, and they did the little audition scenes together. That was kind of in the film that's kind of pinning the 2 characters. It's a tough scene, so I wanted to see who could nail that. And they did it in my old apartment, last year's apartment living room. So, and then so then it came down. Gabrielle Aerosmith plays Emma, and then Damon Fitcher. I'm not going to say his character name. I'm just keeping that kind of. I don't want to say his character name to get people kind of that perception of what they might think it looks like. And Damon Fitcher. Sorry, Damon, if I pronounced that wrong. One of my greatest fears is, and I do this to even people I know still this day, that I get so embarrassed that when I pronounce someone's name wrong. And it's, you know, like, so the first time I meet someone, name goes in and out one ear. Sure. Every time. And then, you know, next couple times, I say, hey, how's it going? Like, I never say, like, their name, and I just get nervous. So I apologize to any of the cast and crew. It won't be the first or the last time. I'm not trying to do it. Just a little side note. And then, and then we had a table read 1 or 2 weeks later after that. Almost everyone made that. and then we did a makeup test on Damon, because the makeup artist really wanted to be on set and have their time to be able to know how long it took, have the proper time for his character. And so we did that, and then it came to the set days, and the set days, first day went great. Second day we battled downpouring rain.
Wow.
It was tough, and came together as cast and crew to figure out what solutions work around it. We came up with a good one, and kind of went from there, and now the film is as it is. So
yeah.
I touched it. I told myself I'm done touching. I'm done. When you watch, like, I'm done watching it too. Like, if it's not because I'm disgusted. I've seen it so many times. I edit it. I know
right.
each cut. And I just know everything about it that there is been attached to it. So,
mm-hmm.
I will say this: if it, if it gets into any of these film festivals I'm applying to, which I have 10 overall that I'm applying to, I'm someone that I'll be too nervous to watch it on the screen and too nervous to be in the crowd. So when they say, okay, we're going to watch Dial, here we go, I'll probably walk out of the theater and time my phone and walk back in probably during the credits rolling. So that's just my thing,
man.
I guess. So, but yeah, that was kind of the process. I'm sure I missed some other details in there. There was one time where I couldn't figure out dialogue, and I actually spent 30 minutes on wood flooring. That's what my old apartment had, laying there, and I just kept trying to visualize the scene, and I was saying the dialogue. It's a good thing my roommate didn't come home at that time. He probably would have thought, like, time to move out. So,
man, yeah, no, that's like the film I saw, and I like I said, I was nerding out over the fact that you made this. That's just so cool, and when I first saw it, I'm just kind of like, it took me a while to stop thinking like, oh my god, Luke made this, like everything I had to kind of like be like, okay, now I got to start like actually paying attention.
Take yourself out of it. Yeah,
right, exactly. And so like after it ended, I was like, okay, and then the more I thought about it, the more things started coming in. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, oh, I see what he was doing there. That stuff kind of started to float in after, which is awesome. Like that's the stuff that I love about movies and going to movies, especially now. It's like when you can see one and then like at face value enjoy it, but then it's like getting points on the back end when the more
thinking about it after,
exactly,
right?
Yeah, like the more it sits in there, the more stuff comes in. So kudos to you for that, because I mean, I can't even think of how hard. Like honestly, I don't know. I feel like writing would be really difficult. Like I really enjoy writing, but just hearing you say like working the dialogue and trying to make it flow, like I'm just like, oh man, what a fucking nightmare that sounds like, Oh my god.
Yeah, it's I don't know, it's one of those things where I really enjoy the writing process. I have these giant legal notepads. I actually ask for more during Christmas time. It's a weird thing to ask for Christmas. And I'm working on a feature-length script right now.
Wow.
That I'm really excited about. And we'll see where that potentially could lead to. But I love writing the dialogue and come up with, like, I have on that one. And the same for Dial too. It was breaking down. First I would do Dial was a little different process in terms of I had the story idea and I started writing it out, and but it was filling in, like, I love going into like, okay, this character needs to have these types of clothes on. I think about color patterns. Their wardrobe of these two characters are similar for a reason in terms of their color schemes. And you kind of, that's what I really like too, is you get the dialogue. And, the dialogue and I told the actors this too, I said, don't be afraid to kind of venture out. I kind of they knew their lines perfectly. They never I think we had one or two times where they would stumble. It wasn't even stumbling on. It's just, they might have forgotten a line, and that was okay because these are scenes where they are like really close to each other, and both physically and in terms of dialogue speaking. So, but I was also like, if you miss a word or if you need to add a word to it, like, go for it. Like, I know what I wrote isn't perfect, and you might come up with a different idea and approach to it. And so dialogue, it is fun for me. It's easily changeable by the actors, and rightfully so, but I really like diving into like what the set might look like, the location, every detail on that, and what people are wearing and stuff like that. That's what interests me. The process, though, obviously.
Yeah, right. And like you said, it seems like it could be kind of a fluid dynamic where it's kind of always changing. It could always be, like you said, adding a word or taking away a word or using a different word so you didn't have to use 3 words, and just kind of going like that. But I think, like it's more about the feeling and being in the moment, like you said, when they're close together, when they're right next to each other. I think as long as they're feeling it and they're there, I think that comes off more than what they're actually saying, But so you're saying like how you focused a lot on like the wardrobe and the set and the production. Did it come out like the way you saw it in your head? Like you said, you knew you had this location, so I'm sure as you jumped out of the shower to write it, you're kind of thinking of what that location gives you as far as like what you could do story wise, the limitations you have there. So like did what you put on screen, is that kind of what you saw in your head? Is it a far cry from where you started, or how did it kind of end up?
Yeah, I think I would say about what I envisioned. If I had to throw a percentage, I'd say about 65% of what I envisioned was what was on screen.
Okay.
And the cast and the crew as well. They had like the upstairs scene. That's my favorite scene, and the set design on that. I had kind of an idea of what I wanted to do, and I pitched it to Kirsty and Nicole, and they built a beautiful set up there with what they had. I mean, that's all stuff that's on location. That's up there.
Wow.
And so they built that, and that to me was really cool to see. And I was what I was a little worried about because I went up there and I made sure I got the stuff I needed out, but I was like, I really don't know where to place this stuff. And they came in and they, I said what I was kind of looking for, and they put their little approach to it. And the lighting also, I knew it needed to be kind of dark, and from a lighting perspective, and Owen came up with a great kind of lighting plan for that. With Ellie, those two kind of knew exactly what they were going for. And then in but for the most part, I'd say 65% of the intro for me, that's my favorite part too, is that intro. And that is the intro to the whole film, and that is exactly how I envisioned it. So I was really glad to see that come out like that. It did, but yeah, I'd say about 65% of it, and that's a good thing, I think. That not all of it was, because there have been parts that would have lacked then if it would have been everything I envisioned onto the screen. So yeah, I was really happy with that. And then, there's not really a scene I don't think that I was like all upset about. I think everything, for me, it was a flow. Being in one, technically in one area for this whole film, and there's different sections to it, but keeping the flow, and that's what I was happiest about. And I think it flows pretty well for me, I guess. 21 minutes is easier to watch than an hour and a half. So.
Right. Yeah. It's kind of hard to. I don't know. I mean, if your 21-minute film feels blocky and like a slow pace, you might want to rework some stuff. But no, I thought. I mean, just from an outsider's perspective, I thought it flowed well. I thought that it was kind of. It felt like in a good way, kind of ping-ponging back and forth. You know, kind of kept that going pretty consistently the whole time, which was nice. The performances I thought were really good, especially the guys. What was his name again?
Damon. Yeah, Damon really killed it.
Yeah, I mean that's a role that like I was like, you know, you kind of have to commit to that, and he, you know, you could tell he made some choices, and he was really like, it seemed like a part that you could kind of go a little too far with, but I don't think he did. Like I thought it was a really, really nice, really good performance, I thought. But
yeah, I thought so too, and that was one of the first thing. My roommate and his girlfriend watched it. They were one of the first ones to watch it, and they first thing they said was, Damon sold it for him. And you know, that's nothing to take away from anyone else in the film. I thought everyone did really good, but Damon's role is a lot different than what I will say, I guess, the average person will see in their life, you know, in terms of physically see, since this film has a different approach and stuff. And yeah, that was one of my descriptions too. And the character thing was, I said, you got to be able to crawl and fit in small places. So he's like, I can do it. And he that was the other thing too, is during his audition, we did the reads, and then he did his audition, and he kind of showed me his crawl. And what sold it kind of for me was he was my number one choice for the male character before I had him paired up. And the biggest reason was just because when he was crouching, and you know, in the whole film he's crouching, and people will see why that is, and just kind of see that. And everyone else that did the role, you could tell they were kind of struggling, because they do like their lines, and then halfway up they'd kind of rise up and stand. And I never wanted that character to really physically feel tall. You know what I mean? I guess as you've seen it now, I didn't ever want that character to feel over-encompassing. So the fact that he could handle that physically and deliver was pretty impressive.
Yeah, it's a great job. And like you said, not to take away anything else, it's just that role is the juiciest one. It's kind of the one you can sink your teeth into the most out of any of them. And you know, I thought he did a really good job. But you know, not to get too spoilery, like we said, I enjoyed it. I thought you did a really good job, and I'm excited to see what you do next. You know, and how you keep progressing. So like, what do you see for yourself? What do you want your next steps to be? Do you want to keep like making kind of these shorter films until, like you said, you're working on a feature right now? So is that kind of the goal? Is that what you're building towards?
Yeah, I think, you know, this film, first of all, it really touches on kind of, it's a topic now that is starting to really kind of gain traction with the mental health, and that's the kind of stories I kind of like to tell, are these stories that aren't maybe getting talked about as much, but also putting it in a way where the viewer can kind of connect with it, and tell it different, you know, not watching it from the outside, but actually getting inside the heads of these characters, and touching with kind of what's real and what's not real. So, you know, my plan, you know, if all goes well, you know, I'd love for some of these film festivals to take it, showcase it, and then have this feature done by that time, and talk to people so they can kind of see what I can do firsthand. Then I can show them this new script I've been working on, which is also, it touches very much, that one touches very, very heavily, as kind of tiptoes the lines of the Pan's Labyrinth of real and fantasy at the same time, and kind of telling a lesson. I'll have to send that one to you to get your thoughts on it. I mean, it's 27 pages in so far. It's if you're willing to read it, I guess I could get some outside perspective on it. And yeah, it's kind of my goal is would love to be let these film festivals be a part of them and showcase what I can do and bring that story to their festival, and then talk to other people, get their thoughts, and maybe see if they have a project they might want to collab on or have me a part of, and kind of go from there.
Yeah, that was just to talk about how awesome the South Dakota Film Festival is for a minute. Like that was just like a dream come true, and that festival is amazing. It was just so much fun, and there's just such a real sense of community there, and it was just cool to meet all the other filmmakers and like you said, get their views and their perspectives, and everybody's vulnerable there, which is cool because, like you said, like putting your art up there for people to look at and to obviously judge and take in, it's a lot, and like you said, you might have to leave the theater because it's hard to handle. I don't know how I don't know.
Yeah, I don't. I've watched this film so many times. I mean, I sent you probably 3 links, probably.
Yeah.
Saying, "Oh, there's a mistake." I'm so. I can't, I could have probably just sent you that first link and said, "Hey, I'm still working on X, Y, and Z. What do you think?" But for me, it was like, once I get it done, like, okay, this is good. Then I notice things that I can change and different cuts. And I get just too deep into it that in terms of watching it anymore, it's not as enjoyable as it is for someone that hasn't seen it, in my opinion, for the first time. So for me, I'd almost be spending more time turning my head looking at people, and they might get uncomfortable with this guy sitting in a chair, turning around, looking at people's faces, seeing what their reactions are. And so it's better for me that to just kind of step, and obviously it hasn't premiered anywhere out in the public yet. I got a lot of people asking me, like, when are you going to put it online? It's like, you got to wait for the festivals first to consider doing that. Otherwise they get disqualified. And so, it'll be interesting to see. I might have to dip out before the movie starts, because if they see me get up after they introduce me and leave, as soon as it starts, they might already think in their mind, wow, if he leaves, if he can't even watch this, I shouldn't be watching this. So I need to, I just need to get that eyepiece and a pair of headphones that you can put on an airplane, so that way.
Yeah, I mean, you could just try and sit towards the back of the theater. That way, you can just kind of look around at the people in front of you. Maybe
the problem is I know every line, I know every sound bite, I know every music that I would hear it, and I just know exactly where we're at.
Yeah.
So it's tough. It's a good idea though. I might have to do that. I might that, or I'll say, hey, let's hit play. I just gotta use the restroom real quick, and then maybe people might look weird at me then too. That way as well. I guess taking a 21-minute restroom break.
But I mean, Kenneth Lonergan was on WTF, and it was a really good episode. But he even talked about watching Manchester by the Sea, and he's to come up again for the 12 millionth time on this podcast. But he talks about how it's still not quite finished in his head. He still watches that and is but there's just this little tweak, and he does say it's 96% good is done is what he says. He's but there's always little things I just want this scene to be a little bit longer, this one to be a little bit shorter, and he's it changes every time I see it. So it sounds stressful.
It's and you're right, you were kind of touching how you're putting your art up there for other people to see. It'll be stressful, I think. I mean, I believe the nice thing is I believe in this project in terms of I like how it turns out. I'm not going to sit up here and say it's a absolutely perfect short film. There's problems to it from a technical standpoint, but I would say film and video is all about hiding your mistakes, because you can, which is so nice. And not saying there's a lot of mistakes. I'm not trying to downplay it now. But it's I know reality kind of where this film is at in terms of just everything that kind of goes into it, but at the end I still feel very strongly how I stand on it, how I think in terms of short films I do watch from other people, that I feel when I always watch short films, I knew I could always do that, just finding the right story.
Right.
And this is a story that I feel very strongly about, and I think the film we put together encompasses that really strong story. And it's a very strong film, and it's done very well. And so I have the confidence in it. But I'll have to leave that confidence kind of also knowing that it's not perfect to a T.
Yeah.
That way, when it starts getting kind of the feedback and people judging it, because I know not everyone's there's gonna be some people that will probably not like it, and that's the way it is, So.
Yep, but as long as, like you said, you put in the work and you believe in it, and like you said, you know it's not perfect, but what movie is going to be perfect in the eyes of the people who make it?
Unless you make, except for in my opinion, Shawshank Redemption is the perfect film.
But do you think the director to that thinks it's perfect? Do you think he watches it and he's like, man, I just don't really like this scene?
He probably watches it and hates it.
He probably hates it. That's so funny.
Every video project I have done, anything I have created, by the end of it, you hate it because you're the one editing it, and it's just, this is the same way I felt. 21 minutes, I forgot how long that takes to edit.
Yeah.
And each part you're going through, and there's times where I was editing where I was like, I can't get this done in terms of, I knew I could complete it, but I was like, I can't get this done because we're missing something here, and then it's just kind of getting creative again of how you can edit it and finish it.
Yeah.
And that's how that one kind of came up from an edit standpoint. I probably won't, the next film I do, I probably won't edit it. I'll probably have a editor that knows exactly what I'm looking for, because it's a long process.
Yeah, there was one guy at the festival last year who he was an editor, and he edited like 6 or 7 of the short films that were up there, because a bunch of them came from your neck of the woods, from the Minneapolis festivals and stuff. So he's like a pretty successful editor up there. So they had him. He just edited a bunch of them, and for a lot of them, he was the only filmmaker there. So he was accepting awards left and right for different films, which was really cool to see him just be like, I edited this one. There was one in particular, I don't remember the name of it, but it was really interesting, in a good way. I'm not saying interesting because I didn't like it, and I don't want to say I didn't like it. I don't remember the name of it, but it was dark and it was black and white, and it was very ambiguous and kind of surreal, and I liked it. I didn't really know exactly what it was about, and I don't think you were really supposed to. I think it was just one of those things, but I liked it. It was definitely had a somber tone, and it got in there. But he talked about how they had a very specific story in mind, and they shot most of it as just a linear telling this one story, and then he's like, but after they started editing it, they just didn't really, that story just didn't quite do it for him, I think is kind of what they said. So they just kind of started messing around the editing and just kind of doing it as more of a think piece and kind of letting audiences kind of fill in the blanks, and I really appreciated that. I mean, because once he said that, I was kind of piecing together, just based on the shots, kind of what it was probably about, the full story. But I really liked that approach. And yeah, maybe that is something to look into, just have somebody else be the one who looks at it. Because then it's nicer on them, too, because it's not their art either, so they don't have to be as invested in it when they're cutting it up.
Yeah, they can... And they have a different approach to it and a different mindset, and it's not getting dictated too much from the top down,
Right.
But this one I felt really important that I wanted to edit it because I was being my first one. I just knew exactly what I wanted.
Yeah.
That I felt important that I needed to edit that, and I mean that's how I've always done all my video projects. I've usually done the shooting and then the editing, but this time I came up kind of roughly with the shot list, and then Ellie kind of looked at those, and she also had other great shot input ideas, and we implemented those, and so it was nice to be able to not have to worry about the camera side of it, more just watch the screen and then then edit the project afterwards.
Sure. Did you shoot it sequentially?
Nope. No, I had way too many shots. I thought we could get a lot more shots in because I actually got all my shots done, and I had I think 180 shots I had planned for 2 days, and that's a lot.
Wow.
And I had it shot, and I knew exactly how I was going to cut. My storyboard was the cuts. That's just kind of how I work on that. And
yeah,
Ellie kind of came up to me the first day, was like, we need to cut some shots down, because I was definitely stressed the first day and then the second day was not as stressed because I kind of had a better flow. Not everything came at me all at once,
sure,
like it did. And so yeah, we knocked down the shots down, but then we shot it kind of in different orders, in terms of when each crew member was there. Like, a certain crew member might not needed to show up till a certain time, or one crew member only had to be there, or a cast member, had to only be there for 1 day. So it's like, let's do all the scenes with them. And then we also got the rain dictated what we shot before the rain came, and then what we could keep and salvage in the rain from a technical standpoint.
Yeah.
So we didn't shoot it in order, but we definitely shot. I definitely made sure that we had scenes that were shot in terms of the emotion that goes into it and the intensity in some scenes, like not back to back.
Sure.
As people will see in the film.
Yeah, I mean, I can just about imagine what that rain would do to your sound. Like,
yep. It was easier to take out than I thought. So we probably could have. The upstairs scene, it was a good thing we recorded that before the rain came. But that's actually what and this is not any spoiler in the film, but we were talking, and we were shooting in this other part that has more insulation, so we didn't hear the rain for that part. And I thought, like, okay, how can we shoot the entire film in this location? It wasn't going to work. I was trying to make it work, and Ellie finally came up with this great idea. She's like, well, this film deals with mental illness and kind of depression. It might make sense that rain's in it. And so there's actually a creative choice actually in there of when the character enters a certain space and leaves that space, that there is rain kind of in the background very silently. It's tough to hear sometimes, but if you really, it's meant to be tough to hear. But when you do hear it, and then when they're out of this certain space, as people have seen the film, the rain's not there anymore. So yeah, we worked with it. I mean,
yeah,
it wasn't ideal, but had to do it,
Hey, that's why Jaws is so great, right?
Yeah, mechanical shark doesn't work, so we'll be the shark.
Yeah. I just compared you to Spielberg. You're welcome.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. Well, so thank you guys so much for listening. Thanks, Luke, for coming on. So the film Dial is going to be, you said, about 10 festivals, maybe some more. Is that going to be coming up later this year?
Yeah, I actually got the list right here. So the ones I've applied to so far are the Big Apple Film Festival, the Nevada City Film Festival, the Edmonton Film Festival, Palm Springs Short Fest, International Short Fest, the Holly Shorts Film Festival, and the Stony Brook Film Festival. And then I still got applied to the South Dakota Film Festival, the Twin Cities, because it's in Minnesota, so of course I got to submit it to Minnesota one, and then one in Indiana, one in Austin, Texas. So,
sweet. Are you gonna go to all of them?
I'll try. I mean, if it makes all of them, I would. Yeah, awesome. I mean, if I got to be able to represent it,
Yeah.
It'd look good if I wasn't there.
That's true.
Definitely, obviously, would be at the South Dakota one. Gonna have ties there. Be great to do another podcast.
Yeah, I would love to.
So
if it gets in
person.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. And we could do a deep dive then. We could actually do a spoiler-filled one.
Yeah,
unless you don't want to.
we could, no doubt. I'd be down to do that. It's tough not to talk about the spoilers on it.
Yeah, it is. It's harder than I thought it was gonna be.
Yeah, I did too. I was like trying to get into it, and I'm like, as people will see, I'm sure I said that about 100 times in this. I'm like, as people will see in the film. So
Yeah. Well, I mean, so where can people find this? Where can they track where to see this movie?
So I have it on Facebook right now, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We'll just pull it up real quick here. So on Facebook, it's Dial Short Film. If you search it on Facebook, or the username is @Dial 1-800-273-8255 for Facebook, and Twitter's the same way, but it's @D 1-800-273-8255. And then on Instagram, it should also be Dial. It's just Dial_short film. And so that's where people can find it. I'm actually going to start, I did a lot of posts early on, kind of teasing up all the cast and crew, and then kind of some shots. And now I'm going to post this coming week, probably starting tomorrow, some stills from the film, because I think people have seen the trailer now, and now it's time to post some stills.
Awesome. Well, I'm like I said, I'm excited for more people to see it, and I'm hoping it gets in to the South Dakota Film Festival, and we can do another one of these. But
yeah, I'd love to even I'll bring my camera and I'll record it and take your audio feed and I'll post it on our pages and stuff.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
I'm gonna do a quick post here too tonight. I'm actually running up they'll be in my little quick. I'd never talked to the camera either, so people I can do is great. I'm going to attempt it for the first time tonight, talking to like my camera post on my Instagram story and Facebook story, and
it's tough.
But it's probably going to take me 10 takes, but I'm running off of actually 3 hours. I was working this weekend, and with daylight savings moving forward, my Fitbit says I'm working off of 3 hours and 56 minutes of sleep, so I'm going to post it real quick, and I think I'm going to hop in the bed and go to bed for hopefully 10 days straight.
Yeah, sleep some of that stress off.
Yeah, no kidding.
But all right, well, I think that's going to do it for us here. You guys can find me on Twitter @LukeLarson89. Find the podcast @L² Podcast on Twitter, L2 Podcast on Facebook. We're on SoundCloud, YouTube, and like we said, definitely check out Dial coming up. And I'll put links to all the social media on my posts, and definitely go out and support Luke and follow his career and follow this movie. And I'm just so happy for you, man. Thanks so much for coming on.
Well, thanks for having me, and I look forward to sharing this podcast and some of your other stuff too. Let other people try and get more Minnesota people listen to your show. So
hell yeah, that's awesome. All right, thanks for tuning in, guys. Peace.